JOMADLAND, Charles.
Impressive, the artwork, the art department, overdrive again.
I didn't see that movie with Frances McDermott, but I think it won all kinds of Academy Awards.
She's a great actor.
Yeah, she's good.
Or whatever you call them.
Now, Charles, speaking of Academy Awards, I'm sure you saw that the Emmy Awards are breaking all kinds of records for low viewership.
For sucking?
Well, I mean, lowest viewership in history of that giant turd.
I mean,
should we go up through Times Square?
This is Times Square.
Oh, that way? Okay.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, go this way. Sorry. I thought we were at 42nd Street. Yeah, I mean, who wants to watch I mean, people are barely watching the TV shows to begin with. Let's just slow it down just a little bit.
Sorry, yeah.
People are barely watching the TV shows to begin with.
Do you think that's because they're too busy watching Crowdsource the Truth on Telegram, on Crowdsource the Truth 7, Crowdsource the Truth 8?
I think some people are. I think there's a thirst.
Rumble, Odyssey, Getter.
Well, I think there's a thirst for programming that does not simply toe the party line, but encourages people to think for themselves. That's really what we have a crisis in how we think, because most people don't think.
Yes.
They just find somebody else to maybe give them the answer or cheat off of, and they say, well, you know, this Joe Biden said we've got to persecute MAGA Republicans, that they're the source of all evil. And so you say, well, if the president said that, I guess I would say it must be wrong, but a lot of people say it must be right.
I think once anybody says anything and it's heard, that idea exists in the world. What did you think of that? And then people go and are gonna just think it's, you know, a thing.
Well, you know, I warned when I started going back on Fox in 2015, I guess 16 actually. I met with somebody who's no longer there, who was the top person in charge of doing documentaries. And we had about a 2-hour discussion, which is a pretty long meeting to have with anybody, in which I said a couple of things. I said, first, I'm not an expert on how to run your network, but I am pretty good at figuring out how businesses do and do not make money. And
also, you're a biologist.
Exactly. And so, so I said to them, you know, do you really expect, if you were honest with your viewers and said, look, on this show, it's an hour long, I'm going to subject you to about 20 minutes of garbage between station break announcements and My Pillow and
non-content, basically.
Still annoying content in certain cases.
Because what they're saying is garbage. What you're talking about.
And so your ads, well, you might need them for revenue. Your ads are actually cannibalizing your viewership, because people like me look at this and say, if that's the best you can get for an advertiser, what's wrong with you?
Right.
You know, if your audience were really attractive.
Well, let's clarify that for a second, because you and I have had a number of conversations about this, and I think you're talking about Fox News and some of these things that are sponsored by My Pillow, who's now been raided by the FBI. We'll talk about that whole bit in a moment. But when you look at any kind of broadcast, the sponsors are usually major national brands and major corporations, because these shows cost a ton of money. And if it's just local, regional advertising, it just makes me wonder, how the hell could that even support it?
No, I agree. And so it's like the time I went on my honeymoon, and I was told by a good travel agent that this place, Peter Island, in the Caribbean, was a great place. And I get there, what they failed to mention to me is it was owned by Amway.
Oh yeah, this is Saltpeter Island. Yeah, totally different.
No, it was pretty. It was like Canal Bay in terms of expense.
Yeah, I didn't like it.
And I got there to find out that Amway used it as a perk for their best salesman. And I said, okay, I can tolerate this. I'll just enjoy the location. Let me go and get a spy novel to read or something in the bookshop while we're on the beach. And all they had was, you know, the history of Amway.
Wow.
Like, I don't want to read about that.
That's weird.
I know.
It's like a cult almost.
I know. It's really weird. Speaking of cults, there's this gentleman here.
Yeah, this is the cult of weed here.
It's the guy to the right. I'm sure he has an issue or one or more issues. Cancer down below his butt. And we do not want to get into it with these guys. 5 of them.
No.
But we're giving people a taste of what the city's like.
Well, it's degrading, Charles. It's like Lord of the Flies, taking over by disorganized maniacs who think they can do whatever they want. Hang on.
Yeah. We have this if we want to cross.
Oh, I thought, but it's...
I just want to get away from that group of 5 guys.
Yeah.
Because their shtick will be to take umbrage over the fact that you're photographing them, and then really you're not.
Right.
Anyway, so when we think about the programming that's available, it's so corrupted by
This
bad
guy's
ads.
got a sneezing thing going on.
Bad ads.
He took off the mask to sneeze all over the place.
Bad ads and worse programming in certain cases. You think about on prime time, America's Got Talent, which is actually needs to be edited. It needs to be.
But it's a reality show. It's not.
That's my point. America's Got Talent takes 2 hours at the end now, twice a week in prime time. There's only 3 hours in prime time. I mean, on one of the channels, and so if the best you can do is have crappy ads and crappy programming or alternatively reality TV, why are you watching? Why are you paying for cable? I mean, it doesn't make that much sense to me. And then it's not only the great work you're doing, but the fact that apparently there's now more programming available on YouTube than there is on the
television.
On television.
Yeah, that's obvious. And
so,
the thing that's interesting is YouTube, this fits perfectly with where I'm about to take you, Charles.
Okay.
This is a mystery for you and the audience as well.
I know what it is. You are going to buy me a car.
No.
Thank you, Jason. That's really nice.
I could barely buy you a soda. But along the lines of what you were just saying, Charles, this is going to all tie together because I agree with you that advertising-based model, corporate-owned broadcasters supported by other corporations, that's broken. And honestly, I identified that as one of the major problems with us being able to get any kind of truthful information from the news at the outset of Crowdsource the Truth, and that's why I created the direct-to-viewer sponsorship program. People who say, oh, well, I refuse to pay for the content, they don't get what I'm trying to do. It will never be content with integrity unless it's viewer-sponsored stuff. And what you just described about YouTube having more viewers and more content than television, I also identified that would happen because it is able to organically evolve in a way where everybody's particular tastes are catered to. And if you want to watch a show about the history of Mustang engines, it's very possible that the woke people at Discovery Channel or NBC would say, that's stupid, nobody wants to see that. But it's got 1 million views on YouTube because a lot of people want to see that. And it's about free markets developing organically versus planned markets that are badly planned and don't work. And so the place we're going right now, Charles, is the Ferrari dealership.
I knew you were going to buy me a car. Thank you, Jason. I'll take it in blue. I don't want a red one. I want a nice blue one.
I have a feeling that I can't afford a single thing in the Ferrari dealership, even if they're selling a cup.
How about this woman?
Yeah, she's a winner.
I mean, how do you go out in public
America's
like that?
Got Talent.
That's not fat or skinny shaming. That's just stupid shaming.
That's a woman who should be home hanging out with the cat.
There should be rules against that. I mean, this is a prime tourist destination, not anymore. Here's this fake Tibetan monk. We get him all the time. He's as Tibetan as I am.
So Charles, how could a Ferrari dealership teach us something about organically evolving free markets versus planned economy?
I have no clue where you're going, Jason. I'm sure you'll tell me.
Well, I will tell you. So yesterday, is today the 14th? Yeah.
It is, September.
So yesterday was an historic day for Ferrari people.
What was that?
So Ferrari introduced an SUV. I think we were talking about it previously, but it wasn't out. And maybe you know this, but in the I don't remember if it was the late 90s or the early 2000s, but Porsche purists were up in arms because Porsche announced the Cayenne, the first Porsche SUV. and it was blasphemous. An SUV, a four-door Porsche, a V8 engine, all of this is non-Porsche. Everybody said, "Oh, this is a huge sellout. You're just doing this for money." But you know what?
It worked.
There's now 19 different varieties of Porsche Cayman. There's the Porsche, some other littler one. So now they sell more SUVs than they do 911s. And then you had Aston Martin made one.
Really?
And we've seen a million of those Lamborghini Urus. We've seen those all around. That is absolutely the best-selling Lamborghini and has like doubled the size of the company. So
here's the cowboy.
Oh yeah.
Let's keep going.
I know the show is not about cars, Charles, so I'm sorry to be distracting with that, and we'll get through this pretty quickly. But the point is, Ferrari has now released this thing called the Purosanga, something in Italian that means pure blood.
Oh, Puro Sangre.
Right, because Ferrari people were, the guy who's the CEO said he'll have to be dead before they produce an SUV.
Right.
But this is a purebred Ferrari in that it's not electric, it's not hybrid.
Wow.
It's a 715 horsepower V12.
Where am I going to park it, Jason?
I don't know, Charles. They'll charge you a lot to park this, but you might remember when we went by the Ferrari dealership previously, I said I think you should buy a Ferrari with a flat 12 because you got to have a 12-cylinder Ferrari, and that is the pure heart of the thing. Now, I guarantee it's going to get terrible fuel economy, and depending on the options, it's over $400,000. Now, do you think Joe Biden told Ferrari you need to make an SUV, or did this product organically evolve out of a 100-plus year racing heritage?
I think it's Kamala Harris got together with Latrine St. Pierre,
and they
came up. Yeah, blood red. We'll call it the voodoo doll.
My point, I think, and I hope they'll have the Ferrari there when we get there, is that this is something that has organically evolved. Sure. Enzo Ferrari in the 1950s was just interested in winning Le Mans races and building race cars, and to support that, he had to sell cars to people.
Right.
And then to get enough money to continue the race team, he sold it to Fiat. And Ferrari has become a very famous brand with a huge racing heritage. I think they've won more F1 races than anything else.
Who owns Ferrari now? Still Fiat?
Well, yeah, public. Fiat, I think.
Careful here. That's really an accident waiting to happen.
Yeah, they should fix that.
Of course they won't. Well, yeah, I mean, the difference is, I'm actually working on a lengthy treatment of this, where I'm looking at the companies I believe are good investments, and we talked about this earlier today. We have in Apple, which, as the market corrects here, I think Apple could be an interesting investment for me. I'm not giving advice, it's for me and my family. And so you think about Apple, we checked this morning, you and I, it has 154,000 employees worldwide. That's not only in America, so America's probably, as a guess, half or less. Whatever you want. What?
Texting.
Yeah. And its market value, as to say, the people who go and fight every day, and some want to buy and some want to sell, and a market's established, the market value of Apple is about $2 trillion with 154,000 employees. Contrast that with the Department of Homeland Security, which you say had, 240,000 employees?
Yeah, something like that.
All right, and I would argue that that entity, when you look at its total cost to the taxpayer, and remember that we're collecting far less in tax revenue than we're spending, the deficit created by the Department of Homeland Security, just the financial deficit, forget the soft deficit and the implications of having a whole bunch of potentially corrupt, crooked sponges living off the fat of the taxpayer land and restricting our freedoms and destroying much of what made this country great at one point. Forget all the soft stuff. The Department of Homeland Security is certainly not adding $2.4 trillion in present value to the wealth of America. If anything,
maybe Weed World is.
Yeah, no, it certainly isn't. But so no, I mean compared to,
it's a sell on Weed World.
I'm saying compared to Apple.
Yes,
right.
Absolutely.
And so you can go down a list of other companies, and you can see how many employees are in the company, and what does the market say the present value of the equity is worth today. And that's not that's not Larry Summers and what's the guy's name? Thomas Friedman and another guy, Michael Beschloss and other people, venturing their opinions about what's going on in politics and economics and whatever. These are people every day in these big buildings around here. Barclays, which used to be Lehman's.
Queen Elizabeth is on there.
Yeah. On the trading floors, people are betting their own money and their clients' money. Either that Apple will go up or it'll go down or it'll stay the same. And the absolute gigantic, deep market of people who invest in Apple all believe that Apple today should properly be valued above $2 trillion. If you had as many people who are investors in Apple valuing the Department of Homeland Security, we would not have a Department of Homeland Security. We would say, you people in government, and I did use the phrase, you people advisedly, you people in government are stuck on stupid. You do not understand that we are out of money. And you've got
beyond out of money.
Yeah, and you've got to, with the money that you get each year, you've got to accomplish what you said you were going to do with the money. You can't say, well, I can get this budget year in this cross street. I get this same budget increase next year, 5%. Why don't I not do the job I'm supposed to do this year? And
waste the money somehow.
Waste the money. I'll just get more money next year, or more, even more money. So there's always a sob story when the government people come to you. They say, oh, no, this is an emergency, and we'd like to tell you why we need it, but we reveal sources and methods, or the conflicts, or you can't possibly understand the dangers we face. Just give us the money. And so you look at that contrast between a Ferrari, which is a very small market, actually. It's a thin...
And that's what I want to ask you about when we get over there.
Sure. It's a thin market of people. Most people, I would hazard a guess, are not going...
Never own a Ferrari.
Are not going into the Ferrari place and saying, look, how much money down can I put?
You put a Ferrari on layaway.
Yeah. And in fact, I know a number of people who are like this. And, if you're, let's not say how rich, but if you're rich enough, you'll regard a $400,000 car as, a nice toy to give it to your kid when he's 16. I mean, it's not something I would ever do.
Yeah, you'd need to have a crazy load of money and a lack of...
people you've described, I think, who are worth probably less than $50 million who would do it. And, if you got $50 million and you're 70 years old or 60 years old,
get a Ferrari.
You might.
Yeah, you might.
There are some people who spend the money on their kitchen.
There's somebody who would buy that Ferrari and turn it into an Instagram channel and make money with it.
Right. But there are a lot of car nuts. I mean, I'm a book nut. I have never.
Right.
Well, I shouldn't say that. I've never paid more than, I would say, $1,000 for a book. But I've got a lot of books.
It's a collectible.
Well, I've got a lot of books that I've paid a lot less than that for that are worth a lot more than that. So for me, that's my Ferrari. I'd rather have those books. I enjoy reading them, rereading them, looking at them. They look good. Currently they're in boxes, but they look good on a shelf in an apartment or a house. And there are people who don't like books and do like cars. And so, but the point is, the government should not be in the business of designing the next Ferrari.
That's what I'm getting at. I'm not questioning the value prospect of a $400,000 car, but you did touch on something I want to discuss, which is that Ferrari is not Ford, although they do have that movie. But what I mean is people walk into the Ford dealership because they need a car to drive to work, they need a car to drive to their construction job, they need a car to drive their kid to school. The Ferrari is a much different market, and it's one of these things that's like an outlier. But I imagine that there is something to be learned from a market from looking at the outliers. Not that they would drive a decision, but it's an interesting data point. Right. And as you're saying, Joe Biden didn't say, hey, Ferrari, you need to make a four-door car or a safer car or an SUV.
He would do that if given a chance. Fucking moron.
But that's what he's saying to these other companies. He's saying you need to change your product to fit this criteria, irrespective of what your particular market wants. Ford has determined that a lot of people want a 700 horsepower pickup truck.
Right. This is, I think, I don't know if it's Fashion Week, but it's Fashion Month. And on the way up to you, there's a Brazilian, which is no Latrine St. Pierre. It's not a number bigger than $1 billion. A Brazilian restaurant there on 7th Avenue. And there were 3 nuts, and I say nuts because one was dressed more crazily than the next. You know, and none of them. One of them was, I think, a model, but the other 2 were just, I don't know what, big fat guy dressed like literally like a clown. You know, like a kaleidoscopic array of crazy things that really weren't pants, and a shirt that wasn't a shirt, and a silk scarf, and a weird hat and sunglasses. I mean,
were they here for the Italian-Swedish concert? Il Volvo? Oh, Il Volo. Sorry. Okay. I got cars on the mind.
The African Designer Series.
Is it shoes?
I hope it's not statues.
That's weird.
That is original sculptures created by Willie Cole.
But it's made of shoes.
I know. That's what they're selling.
That's interesting.
Yeah, not for you, not for me.
Yeah, looks good on you.
Not for me.
You got a free bowl of soup with that hat.
Now you're invoking one of my all-time, better than an Oscar-winning movie, but that's an Oscar Mayer Wiener movie.
But does that take us to Trump, who was having secret meetings on the golf course and going to D.C.?
I don't know what he's doing in D.C. I mean, watching what I'm watching in D.C., I never want to go back there again. I mean, there's no prospect of getting a fair trial in Washington, D.C. if you're conservative. None whatsoever.
Well, I've finished the Jared book, and I've started on the Jeffrey Berman book, who maybe you remember.
Yeah. U.S. Attorney, Southern District.
Exactly. He was the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York when the Jeffrey Epstein thing started, and I've just begun the book. But it's super interesting, Charles. He was an associate to, what was the lawyer's name who was the lead investigator on Iran-Contra? It just fell out of my head.
Walsh? Was it?
Maybe that was it. Anyway, he's talking a lot about Iran-Contra.
Well, there you go.
And he was an associate, as was, oh man, and what's the woman's name who took over?
Jamie Grella?
No, who took over as the U.S. Attorney in the Southern District of New York, who basically...
I don't remember.
Sank the Ghislaine Maxwell thing. Anyway, that woman was also an associate on the Iran-Contra thing with the same law firm. Let
me Jason you there for a second. And just say, for the record, for those people who were wondering about my motivation, I think what happened in Iran-Contra was despicably bad. You know, and I think
one of the worst things ever.
Exactly. And I'm not. I used to be reflexively a Republican. That ended a long time ago.
Yeah.
But when we let people like Bill Barr and HW and W and the Country Club Republicans, Nick Brady for that matter, decide that, the Congress says that you can't do something, but it's a co-equal branch with the executive branch, so fuck off Congress.
Let's figure out a way to do it.
We'll just do whatever we want to do because we're serving a higher interest that is so important we can't explain to the public. That's bullshit, and the fact that we did Iran-Contra and covered it up has only made prospects for all Americans across the political spectrum, across the economic spectrum, a lot worse, because the fact that Republicans conspired to do what they did and then cover it up has let Bill Clinton and his people cover up their crimes, and it's an unholy alliance of covering shit up.
I absolutely agree, with a couple of minor deviations. I would caution against falling into the paradigm of Republicans did this, Democrats did that.
I'm not, they always did it together.
Well, right, because Berman gets into that. He starts off saying like, oh, my parents were Democrats and I was a Rockefeller Republican. I realize that sounds ridiculous.
What?
That's what I mean.
No, I'm saying Rockefeller Republican, right. Those are the worst kind.
Well, and that's what he is. And so what I'm getting at is this guy has all kinds of history and problems with Chris Christie because he was a New Jersey guy.
Well, I like him.
It's like a fun shopping trip.
I like him now. You had problems with Chris Christie.
No, I don't think you do. What I'm getting at is, as you start to read all these books, Bill Barr, Jared Kushner, now this guy Berman, I think each of them are telling a little bit of the truth or their own version of the truth, and also kind of limited hangout style, you know, twisting it a little bit.
Right.
But what I'm getting from the Berman book so far, picture this, Charles. If you were an extremely sophisticated attorney, I won't say anything, but here's another asshole. Crowded ass sidewalk.
With a woman on a cane. There's the Olympic Tower.
As I read all these books, Charles, it's starting to reveal, in my opinion, this is my speculation, I believe Bill Barr jammed himself in there because all the stuff that Berman is talking about, he's talking about Donald Trump's DOJ, Donald Trump's GOD did this and that, because they're
Donald
sort
Trump
of
never had control of it.
That's what I'm saying. He's trying to make it such that everything that happened in the DOJ, because Trump appointed them, it was Trump's fault. But if you were William Barr, this woman seems to doubt what I'm saying.
It's all right.
Do you not?
That's okay, Jim.
Agree that William Barr is trouble? She was turning around and looking at me and laughing when I mentioned Trump. But the point is, Barr got in there to do all this screwed up stuff and make it look like it was Trump's idea. Then he kicks out Berman. Berman says that Barr had a meeting with him, and then after the meeting, Barr just released a press release that said Berman is stepping down, and Berman was like, what the hell are you talking about? That didn't even come up in the meeting.
Right. Yeah, again, I just knowing a little bit more about the big law firms and how they work, you know, there's a major league problem in that big law firms are all mostly constructed to have about the same number of Democrats as Republicans. They're all in, their goal is to get multinational for-profit and not-for-profit clients and government clients. That's what they're trying to do. And they people the firms with former government officials, not just in the United States, but all kinds of former leaders and senators or whatever around the world. And they have got a system. Seldom does a big law firm like that go bankrupt. It happens, but very infrequently. And I can't think of a big law firm that has been punished the way they should be punished. And so these people like Barr and anybody who pretends that they understand law, like Eric Holder, who's a straight up stone cold criminal, unconvicted criminal. Let's go that way, diagonally, or people like, you want to hit that way?
Sure. Sorry, I was looking at somebody behind us.
And people like those guys, they know that they go from the positions they have in Washington, D.C., straight into a plush office suite with one or more secretaries. They don't have to do any work. They just show up every once a year to shake Eric Holder's hand, and he probably has never written a legal memo since leaving Attorney General himself. Maybe somebody else wrote it and he signed his name to it.
Oh, no.
But that type of person should not be getting millions of dollars a year, and should not know that from Covington Burling or wherever he is now. Covington Burling shows up on your door and says, I represent ABC and we're going to sue you. You better think twice about immediately folding, because it's going to cost you millions of dollars against them. And they have an unfair advantage in that they've
placed all the judges in there. They used to be in their firm.
Well, that, and also they have, in terms of, they have very smart young people who are very naive in the main, who will just work their asses off to torment you. And
we got to just look at one thing before we go right. Look at that Verizon satellite dish over there. Can you see that?
It's pretty big.
Yeah, I mean, what is that doing? We're getting very used to. I think we should cross the street.
I was going to. Okay, but I wanted to show you this restaurant.
Go through that? Okay.
Unless you think we're going to get cut out.
No, it'll be fine.
You want to get a nice jacket for yourself?
That looks like something from a cartoon.
Ridiculous.
This looks completely safe.
Yeah, this is all fun. But we're coming up on that restaurant I told you about, San Pietro, which is why I wanted to show it to you. That's blood right there.
It didn't say anything.
Blood.
Blood?
Blood.
Oh my gosh.
Construction is very, very dangerous.
Well, and so is New York. And every day it seems like there's another news article about somebody getting stabbed or shot or macheted or beheaded.
So this place has been around since, like, I want to say 84, because it used to be a French restaurant, and I got involved actively recruiting. I used to go to lunch and dinner here 4 days a week.
Wow. I was just thinking about that. In the past 2 years, I've been to restaurants as frequently as I used to go in about 2 weeks.
Yeah. And it really, I mean, I don't know what let's look at the menu here and see how much the prices have gone up. Here we go. Let's see, soup for $24. Veal for $60.
Soup? What kind of soup?
$60.
Is there $20 cash in it?
Roasted peppers with rosemary and sage, $24. That's a side dish.
Boy,
This is the restaurant. I was sitting here. I used to be able to come in here, no reservations. Not so easy to do that. And I was sitting there by myself at a dinner table, and Warren Buffett came in without a reservation.
Get that loser out of here.
The maitre d' just said, "Well, I'm sorry. Do you have a reservation?" No. And so he said, "Well, I really need to use the bathroom. Is that okay?" So he went and used the bathroom. I go up to the maitre d' and I said, "You do not want to kick Warren Buffett out of this restaurant." So she made room for him.
That's funny. Yeah, there's always room when they tell you it's full.
He's not a particularly nice guy, and he's never done me a solid.
No, he's not a nice guy at all. He's a scumbag, in fact, and he's the rabbi to the ginger Frankenstein, so I don't really have a whole lot of interest in Warren Buffett. You're aware that he was photographed with Seth Rich, right?
I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, when Seth Rich is like 13 or 14.
So this is what building?
That's Cuomo's office.
Across the street?
Isn't it? Isn't it?
Dylan Reed.
Oh, is it? Oh, no, it's not.
Was Dylan Reed. No, Dylan Reed is no longer.
Ah, well, you could get an IWC watch in there. Oh,
I
but wait a minute.
could.
Ferrari, where is it? It's over here, right?
No, I know where it is. It's either, I think it's 55th Street.
55th? Yeah.
So, yeah, I had an office on the 14th floor and on the 12th floor and on the 5th floor at different times in that building.
Cool building.
And I got into map collecting. And
wait a minute, what years were you in that building?
When it opened, 82, until I left in 91.
Wow, you know what? In 1991, Charles, I would have been right over here working at Crest Films. I wonder if you and I ever ran into each other in Smiler's Deli.
Yeah, I was in Smiler's all the time. Up here, there used to be a place called Robert Augustin Map Dealers. And it was just literally across the street. So I would think, maybe I should add to my map collection. And I'd go over here and I'd spend $25,000 on maps.
Wow.
And
some people might say that's a little bit less of a good deal than a Ferrari, but those people would probably be wrong.
No. It's a much better deal. And I held on to my map collection.
I don't know if you can get as many women with maps as you can Ferraris.
Well, that would not be a problem in that I was married at that time, so that wasn't an option. But, or let's say that was a more expensive option.
Wow, what stinks, right? Yeah. Well, they're treating my building with that, whatever it is.
Stink bombs?
It's just so toxic.
So this then is where the last firm, the firm I created actually, was in 70 East 55th Street here, across from the Friars Club.
Oh yeah.
Which I was offered a chance to be in, and I foolishly didn't. I should have said, you know what, that'd be pretty cool.
But you know what, it's probably an entree to some sinister secret society.
Well, I was then a member of the Union Club, the Racket Club, the Yale Club,
Friars Club
say, and also and say, in addition, I'm a member of the Friars Club and the Admirals Club.
Because it's like a Jackie Gleason thing, right?
It would be hilarious. I would have gotten to, listen.
It's still going, right?
Absolutely. It would have been absolutely.
But it's mostly comedians, isn't it?
I know. That's why they asked me to join.
That's pretty good. Yeah. That is cool.
Yeah. They asked me to join because the guy wanted me to join because we were looking at buying a radio station together. He was a famous sports broadcaster, a very close friend of Humphrey Bogart.
Not because of your razor-sharp wit.
No. He was an invalid, actually, but a boxing announcer. So this is where we had the second floor in this building here, Heron Tower.
Isn't a heron a bird?
Heroin Tower, no. This is a funny, really, it's got a lot of wasted space on each floor. And when we were expanding, we had a chance, right up above here, we had a chance to take this ground floor suite of offices, which goes downstairs to a basement level floor and has its own garden in the back.
Wow.
And when we were looking at taking the space, they kept saying to us, you can't go in there without an appointment. And I think it's because they were operating a telephone porn scam thing in the basement there.
How high end?
Not very high.
All right, well, here we are, Charles.
So which one do I, what's
the
my limit?
prancing horse.
Any limits on what you're going to get me? Do I get...
Well, we want to make sure they have this sanguine, whatever the hell it's called.
Sangre Puro, is it the one?
Do they have it?
I don't know, you're the one who knows this shit.
I mean, it just came out yesterday. I would
It doesn't
hope they
look
would...
like it.
No, it doesn't. Let's walk in and ask them.
Well, I don't. With a camera?
Well, you walk in, they'll sell you a Ferrari. Ask them if they have the SUV.
All right, okay.
What, is this the entrance here?
Right here.
You're a more probable Ferrari buyer than me.
I read that you guys put out a SUV. How much are they now? You don't have a price list. Wow. And when does it hit the marketplace? Okay. Good. All right. Thank you. That's hilarious.
Yours is ready?
We don't have a price deck yet. We're allocating them to our preferred customers, which is
Yeah.
that's the way they roll.
Exactly. You can't just walk in and buy it, I don't think. You have to be invited.
Well, yeah, and there's a whole, when you're marketing at that level,
It's a different deal.
it's a total, I'm very familiar with how that works.
But did he confirm that it's out?
It's out, yes,
But
sir.
you can't buy it, he said.
It's on allocation to preferred customers. I believe that is the way it works. I know, for example, with jets, not because I've ever owned one, that the way they do it is they say that there's a new jet coming out, and there are people who just have to have the first one.
Yes.
You know.
We'll pay over list to get it and everything.
Yeah, and for example, I mean, this is a slightly different approach, but when my mom wanted to, my father wanted to get my mother pipe organ because she was an expert on Johann Sebastian Bach.
She said, I want a Ferrari SUV, not a pipe organ.
No, my mother never drove. But my father, they met some company, European company, I think it's called H.W. Flentrop, that was trying, Flentrop, it was trying to expand into the American market. So my father either called them or wrote them or whatever, got in touch with them, and said, I'd like to get this type of organ. And they said, well, actually, you'll be the first customer in America. And my father said, oh, that's great. And so, they negotiated whatever they negotiated. I was probably 3 at the time, or however old I was. And they get a phone call about 6 months later, because these are custom made, saying another customer really wants to be the first customer. And my father said, well, who's the customer? And I said, Harvard University. My father said, all right. Well, that's fine by me. I'll give Harvard a break.
Huh.
So, for the rest of his life, he could say, Yale had to cut Harvard a break. What can I tell you?
So you were the first one to go to Harvard, everybody else is Yale? Or how
That's a funny story. So my father was Eagle Scout, president of his class, valedictorian, this and that. And he thought,
so here's our other buddies.
He thought he was going to go to Harvard from Spokane, where he was from. And they lost his application.
Oh yeah, you told me he took the train or something all the way there.
That was like he took the train from Spokane by himself at age 16.
Yeah, and also it was like 1930 or something.
No,
right?
no, he's not that old. 1942. And it's a big difference when you're 96. But anyway, so let's walk by stacks and maybe go only as far as maybe 16
Sure.
or something. But anyway, so he takes the train in, and they basically just decide to give him a place, and a full scholarship.
Wow, they're like, you know what, you're a nice guy, we like you. Actually, Charles, you don't need a Ferrari, you could get this.
What's that? Aston Martin? No.
Jocko.
Yeah, I have three of those. I use those to get around my house.
Yeah.
No, but
so he takes the train.
So he takes the train, and they give him a full scholarship, and Harvard just completely lost his application. So he just said,
bozos.
Then, you know, like a couple of years later, they contacted and said, you know, you never showed up at Harvard. Would you like to go to Harvard? And he's like, no, I'm at Yale.
You blew it. That was like 2 weeks ago.
But you see, my father's family, his parents and grandparents, well, his parents anyway, were committed Westerners. And they really didn't like the East Coast that much. And one of my father's grandfathers had been to the University of Michigan. Another one had been to the University of Illinois in Chicago. Yeah, this is this great coin shop.
Stacks
Bowers.
I think I've told you, my brother is a numismatist, and I used to go here when I was a little kid and be very bored.
See, like over here, you see they have these books on the shelf, and these are these various books about coins. You know, if you're really into this, there's volumes of books about, you know, how many of the coins are issued, and how many are in this quality and that quality.
Errors on them that make it valuable.
I was a tiny, minor coin collector when I was a little kid.
That just said $4,000 for a silver coin.
Sure.
470,000.
Sure, 881.
They have that in there? That's amazing.
I had one of those.
$45,000 penny?
Yeah.
Wow.
I actually may still have that penny. I got to take a look for that.
Keep the change, Charles. It's on me. You should go in there with a penny and be like, I'd like that SUV, please. And they're like, get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
Could you imagine that, buying a Ferrari for a penny? What a great story that would be. They could put it in the New York Post or something.
Then you can buy some of these towels and sheets. These are very expensive, French. And here's my James Robinson. I love this place. I have an idea of going on my trip, of taking in time a picture or maybe the article itself and saying, can you modify this piece of silver?
Oh, is this the silverware place?
Yeah. You'll see, they generally take the stuff out of the window on the weekend when we go by. But when you...
It smells like a fillet of fish over here. We must be near Donald Trump.
But when you have a room that's dark and you have candles and you have a lot of silver and crystal, I mean a lot, and it's you know, old, not brand new, so it's got little nicks and stuff like that. It's really could be beautifully welcoming evening. Even if you have to clean it up yourself.
What's that Kubrick film? Is it Barramundi?
Which one?
No. There's a Stanley Kubrick film. How do I not remember the name of it? The whole thing is shot by candlelight. About,
I don't know,
France or something. People
but this
in the
stuff
comments
is
will
incredibly overpriced. Last I checked, I think a fork was $195.
That's a lot, Charles.
It's pretty high. But they're very heavy, you know, which I kind of like that. I like feeling that these sheets are really expensive.
Barry Lyndon.
Barry Linder?
Barry Linder.
Oh, Baron Winter.
No Ferrari for you, according to Tim. No, Barry Lyndon is a movie that they shot by candlelight, and when you were talking about silverware under candlelight, this guy should know better than riding his bicycle on the street.
Owns the street. A wise ass.
Doesn't give him the...
I know. This is a Trump building, I think.
Oh, maybe that's why we're smelling fillet of fish.
Fillet of fish?
Jared makes a comment that when Trump was getting out of Walter Reed, he could tell he was feeling better because he ordered his favorite meal, a Big Mac, a fillet of fish, a large fries, and a vanilla shake from McDonald's. Right. I don't understand.
Fillet of fish from McDonald's?
Charles, any of that?
No, but from McDonald's? I mean, that's like, I don't know, that's like ordering beef curry in Bangalore. I mean, you know.
It's just, the whole thing is a bad plan, in my opinion, but this is what he did.
Yeah. The furniture can be nice to look at, but it's pretty expensive and it's modern.
Do you think they'd have more success if they changed the name to Mulder and Scully?
Do a TV show, maybe.
Yeah. The truth is in there.
100 years ago, this area was, you know, ooh, watch it.
Was I stepping shit? Almost.
Yeah, I think you missed it.
I missed it. It's a disaster for 3D shoes. Should we go that way?
Yeah. It's a disaster for any shoes.
Flat ones are a little bit, yeah, it is kind of a disaster for any shoes.
So what do you think? We go down to... down 5th to Trump, and then
see if the rubber Trump is there.
Down 6th, and then
we have a lot more news to talk about. You know, Medvedev gave a comment.
Let's back up a little bit. I mean, there was a great piece I sent you, I think 2 days ago, that goes into the history of how the Anglo-American alliance is constantly relitigating.
Look at this. This is oh, it's not Ukraine though.
Yes, it is. Ukrainian. Is it
Sweden?
Is it Swedish or Ukrainian?
Isn't it? Isn't that Sweden?
CBS News.
What the hell is CBS
Official
News
business
doing?
on call.
With Sweden all over the place.
It might be Swedish, I don't know.
And it's a Volvo, so it's Sweden. All right, anyway, sorry. So we got to go back.
So this is a long piece that talks about how...
Thank you for walking the bicycle on the sidewalk.
See?
Sorry, Charles.
Sorry.
Positive reinforcement.
Good, I like that. So it's a long piece that goes into some of the history you've been talking about, how after 1945, major Nazi enterprises were given mulligans. They weren't prosecuted. They were in fact rewarded as part of a plan to contain the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
And that was a dirty deal that has borne awful fruit ever since. And that a particular hotbed of embracing Nazism is the region of Ukraine where Nina Jankowicz is from.
Yes.
And that many, many horrific people are from that region. And so this is a piece that argues that maybe we thought the Nazis lost, but in reality, maybe they won.
Yes, I've been saying it for a long time.
Right, and so we're going to walk by that club I told you about, the Harmony Club.
Sure.
We'll see it in a second. So that's an interesting piece. And then there's the piece before you get to Medvedev of a complete, excuse my language, fucking moron, and that's a technical term. Joe puts the mo in moron. But,
Jomo.
Right?
Jomo,
exactly. The present leader of Germany gave a speech where he said that what we need to do, that Germany needs to lead Europe militarily, needs to push to amalgamate portions of the present Russian Federation into Europe, and that it does. And the foreign minister for Germany says it really doesn't matter what the voters think. We're going to do this anyway. And the leader of either the EU or I think it's the EU, is a German. Another person is on this project. And I say this as somebody, Ortel's a German name. You know, for what happened in World War I and II, you don't get a chance for a third strike. You know, no. We initially, after World War II, both in Japan and in Germany, we insisted in the constitutions that they would not have other than a defensive ability. And so to now encourage these people who are, you know, in recent history prone to dangerous adventurism around a concept that they are perhaps a superior race or a superior way of thinking or whatever. And look at the mess that is Germany today. I mean, nothing is working there. These same idiots who are shutting down nuclear reactors, you know, have relied upon a Western umbrella to defend themselves. Instead of paying for their defense, they've wasted it on these stupid social programs that don't work. And they now face, after laughing at Trump, this is the Harmony Club here. See? So this is principally now, I think, most of the members that as my understanding are Jewish in this club. They may have changed, but 10, 20 years ago.
Kicked you out when you found out you weren't Jewish?
I've been in here. Founded 1852 though is an interesting thing. It's quite old.
Yeah.
I don't think it was in this building in 1852. And across the way you've been in there, that's the Metropolitan Club.
Have I been in there?
Yeah.
Oh, with you?
Yeah. I'm not a member, but my friend from Melbourne.
Not other than that though.
Yeah. This was built by J.P. Morgan.
Wow.
In a fit of pique over the way he was it this, or I think that might have been maybe that one, or one of the clubs was built by him. But anyway, so here we are And it's
wait, so Germany is going crazy.
So Germany's going crazy. And scroll back to October 2020. We were on a glide path. Trump had warned the leader of the Taliban, basically, we know where you live. Here's a picture of where you live. Don't do anything. So we were nobody had been killed in like 18 months through October 2020.
In Afghanistan.
And we still owned all the shit that's currently in the hands of the Taliban being blown up by them. So that's one place. China was losing in the trade war and was not in any way about to strike Taiwan while Trump was president. We were not persona non grata in Iraq. We didn't have an open southern border. We were taking the MS-13.
Gas was $3?
At less than $3,
yeah,
$2.60. MS-13 was being taken out of here on a daily basis. Crime was down, the market was up, and prior to the pandemic. Let's go back to March, call it February.
Oh, Pierre Hotel is right there.
What?
Pierre Hotel is right there. Right. Event 201.
Right. So you look at this now, and to hear, and the situation in Ukraine, they're having big parties in Ukraine, celebrating the supposed victory over there. And now Medvedev is pointing out, look, we're not stupid. Ukraine was on its hind feet. You guys have been pushing eastward since 1993 under Bill Clinton.
Pumping more and more sophisticated weapons in there.
Well, violating the whether it was a written or oral understanding that we wouldn't move east.
And they've keep doing it.
Immediately under Clinton violated that, then under Bush more violations. The Russians put up with it far longer than I would have. It's 30 years of this. And Medvedev is saying, and the Russian people, I don't speak to a lot of Russian people, but I speak to some, and they're proud of their country. The leadership in America is evidently not proud of America, but Russians are.
Yeah.
And they've watched almost $100 billion worth of weaponry go into Ukraine, and all kinds of more than just coaching, support. We haven't declared war. The American people have not been consulted on what's really going on. No one studied Zelensky closely enough, and who's got his strings? Who's handling Zelensky? You want some?
No, it looks terrible.
We can get to that instead.
These ladies are fascinated by the production, Charles.
Hi there.
Are you ladies visiting New York, or are you from here?
No, we live here.
What do you think? How's it been over the past 2 years?
How's it been? It depends on, it's like a blind man looking at an elephant. Depends on what part of it you look at to be able to describe it.
Very diplomatically put. Have a nice day, ladies. That was a smart woman, Charles.
I know. So, do you want to walk on the park side or the street side?
Well, whatever.
The park street side has the benefit that you will see a bike coming.
Sure.
So, this idea that we're going to crank it up against Russia. Russia it's just like, when April Glaspie, the representative in Iraq, meets with Saddam Hussein, and Saddam said, if something comes up, what would you do if we go into Kuwait? And Glaspie basically says the United States has no national interest in Kuwait, and very promptly thereafter Saddam goes into Kuwait. Here we have the Russians saying months ago, last year, we have these issues that we really need to discuss with you in your move eastward over both Republican and Democratic leadership. It's got to stop. We have serious problems with neo-Nazis, actual Nazis in the Ukraine. These are a threat to Russian vital interests. They're not a threat to American interests, but they're a threat to Russian vital interests. And Biden's answer is, the latrine Saint-Pierre. I got to go to a party. I can't think about this.
She literally said, somebody asked her yesterday, everybody's worried about paying the energy bills and paying for rent. And she's like, that's why this party that I have to go to is so important.
Right. Or how about Biden saying, I think yesterday or today, that he's been in the Senate for 720 years?
I think he was trying to make a joke. I listened to that, but it wasn't funny. And he makes so many gaffes that when he makes a joke like that, people aren't sure if it's a joke.
Well, or it says in the cancer speech, he says to people in wheelchairs on the second floor, don't jump.
It's an idiot.
Is that your car?
That's a Maybach.
I know, that's why I thought it might be your car.
No, mine's a Ford. You've seen it. But wait a second, back onto the because this is something I wanted to talk to you about.
Let's let these guys go a little bit.
Sure. RT was saying that that hackers had targeted the military bloc that's like the Russian equivalent of NATO. But there was something here that I wanted to show you where there was a guard for Zelensky who had a Nazi symbol on his jacket.
Now we can
I can't find it easily right now.
Yeah, it's on, you sent it to me on Twitter or on email or something.
But in other words, you present evidence of the history of Nazism in Ukraine. And it's not just a guy with a patch on his jacket. If you go to the declassified CIA archives, they have documentation about Nikola Lebed.
Right, he's awful.
About Stefan Bandera. And these are known Nazis, not just guys sitting around with the tattoos and the t-shirts, marching around with torches. These are Nazis that the CIA identified as collaborators, as you said, to help them fight the Soviet Union. And all this stuff we're hearing in the news in 2022 about this war is that like, oh, Putin wants to recreate the Soviet Union. Ukraine was as much a part of the Soviet Union as Russia was.
Well, Ukraine is a fictitious country, basically. I mean, it's a cobbling together of bits of Poland and this and that. So here we have the Leona Helmsley Park Lane. And look at the size of this. No, it's not all that wide, right?
But it's tall.
Okay, but you'll give me that it's not that wide?
Yeah.
The next building is owned by my friend.
Right.
Bigger than the Park Lane. It's just one of his buildings.
The dude's got a lot of buildings.
Yeah, but look at the size of this thing. First you've got this, goes all the way to the next block, right? This building here goes all the way through, and it's got a nice little pathway. You got Cerebes. This used to be, years ago, Mickey Mantle's, I think.
Oh, wow.
And it goes, see, it's much wider.
Well, it's an apartment building.
But I'm saying it's far bigger than the Park Lane Hotel, which some thought was worth $1 billion.
Wow. Well, just back on the Russia thing for a moment. So Medvedev basically made a speech where he said, listen, you jokers.
Right.
You keep sending these increasingly dangerous weapons to Ukraine. We're not going to back down. And he was talking about sand melting around them and concrete melting. I mean, how much can they put? But the thing is, the United States is not saying, okay, you know what, this is getting serious. We need to sit down and listen to what they're saying. Just keep going headlong into the same stupid plan.
The United States right now does not have a serious government. And Biden got up and said, he tweeted out between the time you and I were talking, should we go down 6th? Or?
Sure.
Between the time you and I last talked and now, he tweeted out, I was on my Twitter feed responding, what he wants to do, my plan, he says, he doesn't have a plan, it means my pain. My plan is to create American jobs in American factories for the benefit of American workers. And I'm like, so, okay, wait a minute. You want to make, you're a MAGA Democrat, basically. That's Donald Trump's basic position, the most important piece of his puzzle. Everything else in an economy really doesn't matter compared to how many private sector workers you have, how much they're earning, and what they're doing. If your economy is based on slavery, prostitution, and drug running on the private sector, that's not good.
Nah.
But if on the other hand, you want to cross or not?
Well, we don't really have the light.
Yeah, we do. That way.
Oh, that way. Oh, sorry.
So, that's what you should care about. That's what was central to Donald Trump's thing. Obama's plan was to create a gigantic bureaucracy of public sector workers to strangle, to really, I argue, it was a war against capitalism, which Biden is continuing. So,
well, it seems to me that Biden and Obama were very much down with Iran, and like if there's a segment of the Saudi royal family that's collaborating with Iran.
No.
Well, but then, so how did we get Osama bin Laden in Iran? How did we, I mean, aren't there?
See, no, my understanding is that, bin Laden is like Bechtel. I mean, it's a very big family in Saudi Arabia. It's not, not just a bunch of...
I'm saying Osama was in Iran.
I'm just saying it's a big family. Bin Laden family is very much involved building out the kingdom, the infrastructure, et cetera. And when I say big family, there are many, many bin Ladens. And this is, many families will have a bad apple. And that's Osama. And he brought shame and dishonor, I would argue, on that family, and they suffered economically, as if they care. This is prime real estate. These guys are always here. Men and women. I don't know if there's somebody under there.
Wow, that dude just like made a sound and spit as I walked right by him.
Right.
I'm less concerned about the damage to the prime real estate and just more concerned about, criminals taking over the city, homeless people lying around wherever they want, doing whatever they want.
Right, but it's part and parcel of the same thing. If you allow this to continue, people are going to move out.
Well, that's what's happening.
And so anyway, back on the schism between,
That doesn't necessarily.
There's a lot of that stuff going around.
Well, that's just a sticker somebody put there.
No, but there's a lot of stories about
33.
that. A lot of stories every day now of young people just taking different vaccines and immediately. Right.
People love vaccines, Charles.
Exactly.
YouTube loves vaccines.
Yeah.
It's just
Downtown will not
pathetic.
serve this station all weekend. Okay. Interesting. So this Europe is currently in crazy land, celebrating this supposed rout of the Russians. And we've talked about this before, that London Has Fallen is a movie after, is it Gerard Butler's, isn't it, or somebody
and
like
Jamie Foxx, I think.
Is it Jamie? That's the Washington D.C. one, I think.
Well,
No, it's Harrison Ford.
See those.
Harrison Ford's the president. In that, from memory, it's a long time ago that I watched it. But and the premise of that one is that the Prime Minister of England dies unexpectedly, and there's a funeral in London, and there are all these heads of state gathered in London. You've been to London, and I've spent a lot of time in London. It's a very difficult place to protect, especially when you have the streets are very narrow, many of them, and you have all these people with different nationalities demanding they have their own security there and bringing guns. So easy to infiltrate people or fly something over it or have a ship go down the Thames and blow it up. I mean, there are lots of problems. And if I'm sitting there as Russia, I've warned you repeatedly that you cannot.
You think Russia would bomb London?
Well, I don't know.
I don't think they would do that.
Well, but might they? I think the way the movie did it is you had a family who had a wedding of their own wedding in Pakistan or somewhere blown up, and so whoever wanted to disrupt got those disaffected family members
and encouraged
to do it. And so, is it the nation state doing it, or is it doesn't matter from the perspective of somebody who wants to wreak vengeance. So, I think this is September 19th. It's a very dangerous moment, and actually we've timed it as usual almost perfectly, thanks to you, because this, I think, is one of the Queen's final disses
on the Clintons.
And if you think about, I know you love Rhodes Scholarships, and I know the Anglo-American Cross-Atlantic Alliance and all that. Bill Clinton and our magazine were very much nurtured by the Rhodes Scholarship. I think had each of them not gotten the Rhodes Scholarship, they wouldn't have met.
Well, they would not be where they are now. It's clearly a path to success that you get tapped and then you're going on this path. There's something important you said a minute ago, though, that I want to come back to. That woman who gave Saddam Hussein the assurance that, you can go into Kuwait and we won't do anything. Wouldn't you agree that that is basically baiting him to do that?
Possibly.
Another Maybach.
They're everywhere, Jason. How many of them do you have?
I don't know. I
don't
can't
know
even
how
keep
many
track
cars
of them.
Wow. That's
But the point is, Charles, that woman is baiting him to do that, and that was a George Bush little operation. And I'm just saying, when you read this Jeffrey Berman book, the George Bush operative today is William Barr.
Oh, yeah.
And what he sees as, Donald Trump's DOJ, this is the Machiavellian machinations of Bill Barr getting this guy, I think, and this is a tall speculation, I think that Berman was selected as the guy that they were going to convince Trump to put in there. because I think Barr knew a lot about Berman from Iran Contra when he was a young lawyer, and he knew a lot about this woman who replaced him as the AUSA. And remember, Barr, I think, is also protecting Epstein, Maxwell, etc.
Right.
And I see a lot of similarities in what Bill Barr does with regard to some of the social engineers and how they've done things to me.
Right.
They try to shove people on you without you realizing it, so that when you make certain decisions, they say, oh, look what Jason's people did.
Right.
This is all Jason's fault. That's exactly what they're doing.
What we hadn't quite finished the thought we were on when you took us here.
Okay.
So I just want to make sure that we don't leave people hanging on that. So, but I'm having trouble
No problem.
remembering.
We were talking about the Clinton Foundation and the Queen's final disc.
Right. So the Clinton Foundation used to be at 1633 Broadway, which is near here. And
That's the Mars restaurant.
and the Clinton Global Initiative has been set for Monday, September 19th and Tuesday, September 20th. Now, as you know from having done events and attended events as complex as the former president and world leaders,
Can't reschedule
you
it
cannot
easily.
reschedule it at all. And this one, remember, is the first one that they've done since they had to cancel it when Trump won. So they're certainly not going to, shut it down now. And as a practical matter, if you are a high and mighty person, and remember the centerpiece of the modern Anglo-American alliance was Tony and Cherie Blair and Bill and Hillary Clinton, who got to know each other in 1992, according to multiple accounts by the Clintons in their various books.
Charles, what do we got to do to put you in this today? That guy's 15 who's driving it. That's an insane car.
Well, I would guess he's probably in the methamphetamine business. But anyway, Tony and Cherie Blair, if they're invited, which I suspect they would be invited to the Queen's funeral, are going to go to that.
Yeah.
Right? Bill and Hillary Clinton can't go to the Queen's funeral.
Oh yeah, they're supposed to speak at the
Who?
Clinton thing, Tony Blair and his wife.
Were they going to speak?
I think I was looking at it the other
Right.
day, and they're listed as speaker, or well, maybe they're
I
listed
think
as
you're
being
right.
there.
No, I think you're right. So you can't. There's no way. I mean, there are no supersonic jets.
Correct.
And so there's no way to attend a funeral
And then get to
and get to Monday in New York City
man.
in time to be there. And probably to get to the funeral on Monday, you've really got to travel. If you're an American, you've got to travel Saturday, either during the day or at night.
what about the flight delays?
And what if there are flight delays? What if there are weather delays? What if there are military issues or whatever? So one thing is certain: the Clinton Grifter Initiative is completely fucked. I mean, it's not
Good.
which is fantastic, frankly. And the people who, knowing everything that they should know now, anybody who shows up at the Clinton Grifter Initiative is part of the problem, right?
Yes, I was just captivated by this, thinking that it's selling something weed.
I know what you were captivated by.
What do they
Don't
got?
even try.
Cocktails and
So, pretzel. How do you spell pretzel? P-R-E-T-Z-L-E.
Where is it?
And this thing. I think it's E-L, isn't it? Pretzel. Hot dogs, chili, that's not spelled wrong.
They misspelled
Pretzel. P-R-E-T-Z-L-E. Maybe it's not what we have in mind, it's something different.
Pretzley.
Anyway, so the Clinton Global Initiative, I think, is an example of something else that the Bush Republicans want to protect. And that is that the Clinton Global Initiative...
Bush Republicans?
The Clinton Global
I
Initiative,
agree.
Laura Bush has spoken at the Clinton Grifter Initiative.
Wow.
And this Clinton Global Initiative, the first meeting of it, formal meeting of it, I would argue, it was tested informally at the opening ceremony in November 17, 18, thereabouts, 2004 in Little Rock, when a big party was thrown and everybody spoke and bragged about their good works at a time when the Clinton Foundation had been operating way outside the boundary of the laws, applicable laws, for basically 7 years at that point, and during which the FBI was in theory investigating the Clinton Foundation. It held its next real meeting, or its first meeting supposedly, September 2005, and every September thereafter until 2016 when it had to shut down. And we've covered this ad nauseum, but I'm going to reprise it in a series of articles coming up, that to operate a forum that's closed to the public, that's very different than in setting up a publicly available library that has to be open to the public.
Yeah.
In the guise of a charity. You can't say I'm going to do that, and I'm also going to have this closed-door meeting where
Private event, raising
scam.
money.
No, well, what I'm doing, I charge people to come into the meeting for the privilege of exchanging their business cards with people who can be beneficial to them in crooked deals around the world. This is what they've been doing, in my judgment. So to do that as a charity, they're completely fucked. They were never authorized to do that. But that's at federal level. At city and state level, to operate under a name different than your real legal name in New York City and New York State, you have to fill out, as you know, a doing business as application, and you can't
assumed names.
Well, you can't pick a name that suggests you're allowed. Let's just move here for a second. This guy's shouting in my ear. That suggests you're allowed to do something that you're actually not legally allowed to do. You can't pick this name, Clinton Global Initiative, because you're not allowed to do that.
Yeah, it's isolated to Arkansas.
Well, and it's not a charitable activity what you're doing, particularly when Doug Band is building Teneo out of it, and Bill Clinton.
But they don't care. These secretaries of state don't do anything. Oh my gosh, somebody didn't like the food festival.
Joe Biden's been rehearsing his next speech, I think.
But this is bad advertising for the 6th Avenue Food Festival. You have somebody vomiting right at the entrance.
It depends if your diet by vomit, you know.
Wow, yeah, the bulimia section.
The Slim Fast. This food is so bad, eat some of it and you can lose 5 pounds the hard way in a minute.
Some people are afraid of cameras, like.
Well, probably for good reason.
Well, they're everywhere. You can't be outside without being on one.
Yeah, well, not everyone understands that.
So the Clinton Global Initiative.
So they didn't even bother to pretend that they were illegal, that they were formed as a charity in New York until 2009, as after Barack Obama had spoken at the Clinton Global Initiative, which I think he did for the first time in, maybe, I'll have to check this, in 2008. So, so the Clinton Global Initiative is not a legitimate, it's not an organization.
Oh my God.
What?
That smell of like whatever construction material.
It's not a charity. And then when somebody, Peter Schweitzer was the first to write a book and make a huge hoot and holler about the Clinton Foundation. John Solomon did so early on as well. I got into it February, March 2015. But by 2016, folks had to know that no aspect of the Clinton Global Initiative was legitimate. They claimed that they had merged the Clinton Global Initiative into Bill Hillary and Chelsea Clinton Foundation, an entity that has never lawfully existed either. They've solicited all kinds of money. They now are rolling up Steve Bannon in New York.
Unbelievable.
For crimes that pale in comparison to what the Clintons are doing right now.
Trump as well, when they, and Bannon too, they're coming back again with a state charge after the federal charge failed. Right. I mean, they're just pursuing them relentlessly, whereas with these other people, they just, oh no, that's fine, we're not going to look at that evidence.
Who was that?
Nobody would prosecute.
Who was the person who was it on Saturday Night Live? They say, never mind.
Never mind. Yeah, that was Rosanna Dana.
Right.
What is all this about eagle rights? It's equal rights. Oh, never mind.
Yeah. So, so that's actually something very useful that the Queen has done by dying and having this funeral. Then the
Thanks for dying.
Thanks for the memories,
Queen Mom.
But in preparing this article that I'm working on, which will come out in a number of days from now or early next week, I thought to look at how Winston Churchill, who I know is loathed by many in the developing world, and when you learn about some of the things that he did do, they're pretty bad.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, in his prime, when he was galvanizing America to jump into the war effort belatedly, he gave several really interesting speeches about tyranny, and the tyranny that you see, particularly then in Nazi Germany and in the Soviet Union. And what he describes is right here.
Yeah.
No freedom of speech.
Getting your house searched.
No diversity of opinion. The government targeting the voter. and on
political prisoners without trials for 2 years.
Right. And most recently, we've got to talk for a bit about this idiotic reduce inflation now party.
Yeah.
Where, only somebody who has never earned an honest nickel in his life would laugh about inflation, because if you're the 80 to 85% of American households are in debt, basically. They probably have negative
mortgages.
Well, they probably have negative net worth if you really think about it. And so when you have negative net worth and you're watching people lose their jobs to machines on a daily basis and at a pace that I think will accelerate, and you see this inflation and you cope with it by changing your lifestyle, reducing it down. Here he is again.
Yeah, that's the same guy.
VT by Turbo.
That's in a really expensive SL.
From Georgia, is it?
Huh.
What's he doing up here?
Why would you put that many miles on a car like that?
If it's not yours?
Right. Why is this guy not driving?
We'll let him go.
He's from New Jersey.
Probably texting.
Doesn't make sense. The light's green and he's stopped.
Yeah.
Well, all right,
All right, I'll bite.
I don't get it.
Maybe he's... Wow. That woman forget to get completely dressed.
I didn't see that.
You would have noticed. Basically barely wearing a bra. Free Willy was trying to get free in there. Anyway, Free Willies.
But we're living in tyranny.
Well, yeah, and so Biden gets up there, and having on August 10th, gotten up there and said, "I want to tell you about a number." It's like very theatrically, exactly 0. That's my IQ. Yeah, exactly. That's my IQ on a good day. But and going, dancing on the grave of his critics for saying, "I reduced inflation to 0." Well, energy prices had gone sharply down, in part because the global economy is weakening and people are using less energy.
Right, and gas is coming down because people like me are saying, "I'm not driving anywhere. Look at this crap." You don't get into a taxi in the middle of a crosswalk.
Well, just leave her alone. But anyway, she can't help herself.
So, but I think gas, there's no way that a little bit of gas coming from the strategic reserves brought it down by $1. I think everybody said this is...
No, it's economic activity. And so, but the point is to then pass this bill, it has nothing to do with reducing inflation. It's going to increase inflation. Call it the Inflation Reduction Act. Turn it into a slush fund for Green New Deal bullshit.
Did you hear Nancy Pelosi? She's like, "Oh, it's beautifully named, perfectly named to tell you exactly what it does." It's like, Nancy Pelosi, you are so stupid. It's obvious that it increases inflation.
Right. Well, she's been in la la land for 30 years.
But Charles, that's the stipulated reality. Whatever it actually does, she wants you to think it's decreasing inflation.
But for Biden to get up saying, there's fundamentally no inflation when it's up 8.3% year over year, and that's a global number. All elements of inflation. Certain things that are very expensive and part of the diet. Very important to some people. I don't particularly like to eat a lot of eggs, but people in the morning like eggs, and egg prices are up 30+% year over year. That's a big change.
Yeah.
So you get 9 eggs now instead of a dozen.
Are they doing that? I haven't seen that yet.
No, I'm making that up. I'm just saying for the same price, you get 9.
Eggs is another one of those things that I buy the ones that come from some farm in New Jersey, and when I tell my mom how much the eggs I buy cost, she's like, "What the hell? Are they putting cash in with the eggs?" No, they're expensive. So I think.
Does she disown you?
No, she's just, they think I'm crazy for a number of different reasons, but I like eggs from chickens that are walking around outside, not in a factory farm.
I'm like Pete Buttigieg. What I like is omelets.
Well, $1.99 for a dozen eggs.
I don't want to see the egg turn into an omelet. I just want...
But I'm saying, when you taste an egg from a chicken that's properly raised like a chicken and not raised like an iPhone, it tastes different. The nutritional value is much different.
So it tastes bad?
It tastes much better. But the point I'm getting at is because this stuff is locally sourced and already much more expensive than giant factory farm-produced eggs that arrive around the country by truck, Some things like that have been less affected, but it is starting. I think I told you that the bison meat now is coming in a one third as much for the same price.
So you're a vegan?
No, just eating less and paying more.
I know. So anyway, so Biden to get up there and lie his ass off about what's going on with the economy, and then think that it's the same. I like James Taylor, his music.
Oh, that was so stupid though.
But it was like, if you remember whatever massacre it was over the
French concert. I forget.
Hebby something or it was the weekly magazine.
Charlie Hebdo, was
Charlie
that it?
Yeah, it was a Charlie.
I thought it was the concert at the.
Or maybe it was
with the guns from Fast and Furious killed everybody.
No. This was the disco massacre in Paris.
Okay.
And after that, Obama says, "What we'll do, we're not going to, get SEAL Team 6 to really mix it up. We're going to send James Taylor to sing "You've Got a Friend"
with John Kerry, right?
With John Kerry, who is, when he's
Charles Rivian.
When John Kerry is just got his mouth shut and he's standing still, he's cringeworthy. But when he's trying to dance to the beat,
I didn't see him dancing.
Oh my God! It's like it's like that scene in the country club in Caddyshack.
Wow.
When they're dancing. I mean, it's just
cringeworthy. Trump's not exactly
I
Soul
think
Train.
Unless you're Fred Astaire,
Yeah, you shouldn't dance in public.
It comes to a certain point where
you're just going to look silly.
Well, it's okay if you dance, but you shouldn't be dancing to rap music or whatever. Yeah. If you're white, not because of the race thing. It's just it's challenging to do that. And at 65, 75 years old, you're not going to do it correctly.
No.
You're just going to look like an idiot. Or a bigger idiot. So you get James Taylor at this thing where you're supposedly patting yourself on the back for whipping inflation, when in fact inflation's accelerating. You're going to have him sing a song about suicide, alcoholism, and depression.
Is that what You've Got a Friend is about?
No, Fire and Rain.
Oh.
That's what he's saying in the most recent thing. And, even Bret Baier and others were talking about this on Fox. It's just stupid beyond belief. And why have a big party?
Tone deaf.
And then why, you just made this big to-do about the best thing about the Whip Inflation Now Act is that we're going to allocate a whole bunch of money to climate change, which is one of the most pressing challenges of all time. And that's why Joe Biden is going to take a jet to Delaware after this to vote and to come back by jet.
Oh my God.
Come the fuck on. I mean, this is, honestly, Mr. Magoo would do a better job than this doofus.
We have so many stupid people running this stuff. I mean, doing complicated things properly. You want to go this way? Doing complicated things properly is extremely difficult. It's very, very easy to screw it up.
How do we want to go back down there? You want to go down 8th? Or?
Let's go this way.
Well, I'm just thinking about the pre-broadcast portion. Do we want to go?
I think if we just go. 8th? No, we don't have to do that. We're going to go straight down, right over here.
Okay. It's worthy.
Don't worry about it.
There's a Texas truck. So, it's just on every level. One person is more dangerous and more incompetent than the next in this Biden administration. And then to suggest this Tim Ryan, who I had heard him speak a few times in the 20 primaries. And he did come across as a young, moderate, economically more sensible individual who was critical of Democrats, though he is a Democrat in Ohio. Yesterday or today on Joe Morning Schmo, sponsored by his intern experience, he gets up. I mean, he's married perhaps the dumbest anchor on television.
This is Zbigniew Brzezinski Jr.
Right, a challenged gene pool to begin with. Leaves his wife for that idiot. Anyway, he allows this guy on the heels of Biden saying MAGA Republicans are a threat to democracy. He allows this idiot, Ryan, to get up there and say, we need to kill the MAGA Republican movement. Kill it.
That's what he said.
I mean, that's outrageous to say something like that on a cable channel and not have any Democrats say, now, wait a minute. you know, politics is about voting. It shouldn't be about killing.
Well, this is what they do with the baby stepping of language, the othering, you know. They want to move you away from the concept of making America great again, because that really is something that anybody who is in America
Would like
or
to see
wants
happen.
to live in America would want. But they need to make it, you know, just MAGA, a meaningless thing that identifies a group that they want you to hate. And they're doing this type of, you know.
But then he's espousing the same principles economically. We're going to bring back American jobs.
Well, I think you mentioned this the other day. Was it you? I don't remember
I think it
exactly
was.
who mentioned this.
I'm that memorable.
Something is making some noise here. No, you're very memorable, but I just do a lot of shows, and it's frequently
right.
difficult for me to remember what the hell is going
And
on.
you're getting old.
Oh, wait, hang on. This has come unscrewed. Anyway, it's like da-da-da-da-da.
I'm loving it.
You think of McDonald's. So they're just trying to create a mental association. Da-da-da-da-da doesn't mean anything about hamburgers, but they've played it so many times that it triggers like an emotional response and a memory and whatever. So that's what they've been doing with his speech with the red lights, and this is destroying America and it's worse than Al-Qaeda, and they're talking about it during 9/11. They're trying to associate it with the most horrible things in people's minds, so that when they say it, it no longer represents the pre-pandemic, economically successful America. They want you to have an immediate association between MAGA and something negative.
And it's what they did with Nicholas Sandmann, for example, right? I mean,
Exactly.
what they did with like Kyle Rittinger or Rittenhouse or whatever.
Yeah, he's gone a little crazy with TikTok.
Well, no, but I'm just saying, there's the people who are doing this experimentation, and who knows who they may be. We had the Twitter whistleblower allege.
We got to talk about that.
In the testimony that there are multiple spies in Twitter.
Indian, Chinese, and Saudi.
And that there's no, I'm sure there's more than just that. And
absolutely.
And that there's no control over your private information.
And almost all employees have access to everything and can tweet as people who they aren't. You said you got some kind of tweet from Elon Musk or something?
Yeah, it's what it is it's from Tesla, it says. I mean, it's got an Elon Musk blue check on it, but maybe you're right. But whatever.
No. But what Peter Zatko was saying is that many employees within Twitter have access to take control over any Twitter account and tweet as anyone. Elon Musk, Joe Biden, whatever you want.
Have you say something you didn't say, or stifle something you did say, and
change a tweet, delete a tweet.
And I'm sure. Look, when the FBI came talking to me about Peter Smith and Jerry Corsi and stuff, they asked me about an email that I supposedly sent concerning some type. Thank you. And I didn't remember it, you know. And so they take it out, and they say, "Does this refresh your recollection?" I said, "Listen, I am not a computer expert, and I send and receive a lot of emails, but I will tell you, I do know that you guys and the CIA have the ability to invent emails. So I'm not going to say that I recognize this document at all." Well, can you try to explain it? I said, I can try. I may not succeed. I'll look at it, but I mean, I'm not saying.
I think a lot of people would have told you to call a lawyer at that point.
Fine.
But it doesn't matter. They didn't do anything to you.
Right.
But I mean,
I took their advice and didn't do it.
Right. The other thing that came out during the Zatko testimony is that someone had contacted one of the senators who was questioning Zatko, said, "Hey, you know, during the election or after the election or whatever, he tweeted something that he got a message saying, you know, you need to delete this tweet or we're going to shut off your account," kind of thing. That little blackmail mode they put you into. And because the guy was a senator, they got on the phone with them, and you know, this employee was reluctant to put things in writing, and she had called them and said, "You have to delete this tweet or we're going to lock your account." And they were asking her to put stuff in writing and she wouldn't. And so the question that wasn't asked, but the question that came to my mind was, to what extent can low-level employees at Twitter extort and decide who gets knocked off without going through official channels? To what extent do those people have relationships with outside companies like Bot Sentinel and things like this?
CrowdStrike.
To what extent, CrowdStrike, to what extent can individuals like the stupid Mario brothers influence employees at these companies? I mean, if you go and hang out at a bar in San Francisco
As
near
O'Keefe-
Twitter,
as O'Keefe has
as
done.
he has done, how difficult is it to meet someone and say, hey, you know what? You want to help me knock out a Trump supporter? Why don't you delete this YouTube channel? Why don't you delete this Twitter account? Why don't you go through and find something that violates one of the arcane policies? Why don't you suggest a policy change that, you know, this guy's terrible, you should take him down? The other thing that came out is that 80% of their employees aren't from the United States. So when the CEO comes out and says, look, we're not about freedom of speech, that's not what this is about.
Right.
He's thinking about making billions of dollars in America and then taking them back to India or wherever he truly believes is his home. People like this, you know, countries like China don't let you come in there and start running companies that are going to subvert their government from within. The United States government needs to prosecute every single person who has ever worked at Twitter who had anything to do with the political weaponization of it, and I happen to know a few names.
Yeah, I agree. Joey.
So it was pretty interesting testimony with Zatko. If people haven't seen it, they should check it out. And also Josh Hawley, who
Good man.
he used to be the Attorney General of Missouri, right?
Don't they pronounce it Missouri? Missouri?
Well, but he was.
Yeah.
And I think so there's a lot of people who say, oh, we got to get rid of CDA 230. Now, you can't do that. It's got to be there. Otherwise, you're going to have a disaster where, you know, someone puts a comment on a video that you post and then you're getting sued for it. You can't have that. But it's got to be modernized because when it was created, people didn't really understand the capabilities of these social media companies or the influence that they would now have. Like Hawley was talking about things about having every social media company, if you want to do business in the United States, is going to have a third-party arbitration process when you appeal getting thrown off of their platform. Right. That would be improving the fairness of these things.
Well, I think another thing that really needs to be done, and again, I always get into numbers, and that doesn't make it right, but I think the process by which people are seduced into using a Twitter, a Facebook, a Google, under a theory that it's free.
Yes.
Not understanding that the information they provide is enormously valuable and is going to make the owners of Twitter and Facebook and Google even richer than they already are. Don't do it, please.
I won't.
But
he's risking people's safety.
I know. But that whole process of, you know, not telling a big user of Twitter just how valuable his or her or its information is to the owners of Twitter, and then also not estimating the value of the service that you're getting, what's it worth versus what you're giving up by way of information, to me is a sophisticated high-tech fraud.
They spoke about that indirectly. They said that they want them to reveal to you what information they have and what is being done with it.
Right. For example,
because the other thing they said, this was critically important, that Twitter has...
Bureau Anti-Terrorism Unit.
Yeah. Oh my God, it's a hat. I thought that cop had blue hair. They were talking about...
That would make him a lieutenant.
Twitter has your geolocation data.
Right,
they can drone strike you based on Twitter. So this causes me to think about that guy, Leroy Press, who approached me on the street. Maybe it wasn't Clearview AI. Maybe it's Twitter that's giving him maybe it's one employee within Twitter that's giving him my geolocation to come and attack me.
Right, and I also get from Google, I don't want it, but on my email I get every month, here's your, what do they call it, your Google timeline. Here's where you were.
What?
But yeah, I'm not interested in you tracking that.
Well, you got to turn it off. I don't even know if you can.
Yeah, I don't know either. But is it Harry Styles they were waiting for?
That was last week. Is he
He's
still
up
there?
now.
That's Amazon Business? What? What do you mean?
You'll see the billboard up there.
Maybe he's still there. I don't know.
Yeah. I love New York. You think these people are from out of town? Do you want a juice, Jason?
No, thanks.
I'll get you the Banana Rama.
I mean, what the hell is going on here? These guys are jamming out the sidewalk.
Shift change. Nuts for nuts. That's where Biden post-presidency endorsements. Kamala and Biden. So just finishing off on this inflation speech. I mean, for us, it's not a joke. I mean, I think we are sensitive to the damage that other people are suffering by rampant inflation, and the prospect that inflation could go even higher. But it's no laughing matter in the bottom 80% of the world by economic activity. I mean, when you have soaring inflation, countries disappear. And you end up with people who are selling their children and grandchildren, and horrible depredation and degradation. So here's this idiot who ran as a moderate. He's governing as a fool, giving himself credit for improving, creating, as Latrine said, 10,000 million jobs, which is a very interesting thing to do. I mean, we must have colonies on other planets.
Well, he started 720 years ago, so maybe he's counting, cumulative.
Well, I mean, we have 7.5 billion people on this planet, so that must mean that there's another 12.5 billion people on colonies around the world, around the universe somewhere, that are being run by the secret deep state.
Now, is this a whole entire new building?
No, that's just they're redoing the cover of it. This is where we used to.
Yeah, no, I know, but
began our walk around.
Looking confusing.
Yeah. Displacing the homeless population, which is supposed to be a good thing. We could go in front of it if you want, or we should maybe wait.
No, yeah, we can cross.
No, we've only got. I don't want to rush. But maybe this will end up looking nicer. It certainly was disgusting.
How could it be worse
than
this?
March 2020. Remember what it was like March 2020 with all those homeless people?
Yeah.
The guy who attacked you as we went down the first.
Doesn't narrow it down, Charles.
Well,
the guy
who knocked
attacked,
the phone.
I know. I remember. That also doesn't narrow it down. They love to knock phones.
Right.
Right. Because they do that, and they're like, "Aha! Now you just lost $1,000 or whatever."
Right. Sorry.
Oh, I was looking at the iPhone 14. They just announced you can pre-order it.
I was not doing that.
Well, you can't get it until October.
I will still not. I won't be doing it in October.
Well, you know what it made me think?
What?
Do I really need this? And I said, you know what? I don't. And I've decided I'm not going to get one.
Good.
At least not now.
You're going to get a Ferrari instead?
No. I'm just bringing it up to point out that all of these supply line things, how many people are making that decision? Like, you know what? I shouldn't buy it anyway.
Right. Well, I think whether you're doing it willingly or not, the other thing people will experience, I'm sure you're experiencing it already, but as you age, your buying preferences get established, and your buying propensity to buy things can reduce a lot. Particularly, you're looking at your house or your apartment, you've got 30 years of shit in your apartment, and you can wake up one day and say, you know what, I really don't need all this stuff. And you start slimming down, and you think, that really
why
feels
buy
good.
more stuff, right?
Well, that really feels good. So you change, you go for, at least in my case, I went from being a student, and I did publish on Twitter there's a timeline. My tuition, I had this math wrong. Tuition, room, and board when I entered in the class of 78, in September of 74, the full tuition, room, and board was $5,300 for a year. When I left, it was about $7,000 per year. Or maybe pushing $8,000. So that's big inflation in 4 years.
I will say.
And my parents paid the overwhelming bulk of that, but to encourage discipline, I borrowed over the 4 years $7,500, and then I borrowed all the money to go to business school. And after college, I got a range of job offers which I didn't take. I thought I was going to have to work, but I got in straight away to Harvard. So I went through the interview process, waiting to see what would happen with Harvard. And I got a range of job offers in the 16 to 18,000 a year category. So you do that math, call it 16, and call it 7, and say it's approximately my salary. That salary was 2.5 times my final year's total bill.
No longer the case for almost anybody.
No way is it the case out of college, unless you're a supermodel or something who went to college. But it's just college is a lot more expensive,
a lot less value.
The value of, you have to look at the value of the major. I mean, Yale happened to have one of the world's best English departments, but yeah, that's like coming here from Mexico and majoring in Spanish. I mean,
That's a Cheech and Chong joke.
Let's not rush for that.
All right.
Sorry, I just don't want to.
No, I hear you. That guy's going before the light changed.
Of course.
That's
and
crazy.
They'll go after the light changes as well.
What the hell is up with that?
We can go now if you want, because it's green. So that bargain is not available. Anyway, the economic compact for the private sector, investor and worker, is destroyed in this country. Hence my argument that Obama, now Biden, and rhinos are waging a war against capitalism. And the crime level, I was in NYU in Washington Square Park this morning, and evidently there was a journalism class, because next to me, these two people went up to somebody sitting down and says, I didn't hear exactly what they were asking, but they asked him some questions, recorded it, and then I got off the phone and another one came to me, said, excuse me, sir, I'm a student in the journalism school at NYU. May I ask you a few questions about crime in Washington Square Park?
There's a lot.
I wouldn't shut up.
There's another new resident,
now,
Charles.
let's cross over here.
Yeah.
You're on the correct side of the street anyway. Pret. I don't remember it being, I was in London a lot in '86. Maybe I did see the first shop. Huh.
Oh yeah, Pret a Manger.
The sandwiches are absurdly expensive now.
Yep.
$11 for ham and cheese.
But they give you almost nothing in the sandwich.
Yeah, it's almost all bread.
That's very French, at least.
What? Getting nothing for something?
It's usually like, a thick
With the
baguette, one piece of ham, and some
and a pickle.
What's that cheese?
Gherkin.
Brie in there.
And a gherkin.
Yeah.
And some butter.
Yes.
Butter.
And then you don't eat that much, but you will smoke a lot.
That's right. And stink up the whole country. Yes.
They do stay pretty fit.
No, I like France, actually. I'm very comfortable. I could live in Paris.
John Mark Dugan had an interesting report, a document somebody had provided him purporting to be from the Rand Corporation, claiming, and this is the reason why I brought up the topic of that woman essentially setting up Saddam Hussein, because that's social engineering. They want to make it look like he made the decision and they had no choice.
Right.
They had to do it.
Well, that's what's going on to Putin, right?
That's what I'm saying. They're always trying to force the person's hand so they can say, oh, well, they did this, like Jason interfered in my CNN case, which is why I had to do X, Y, and Z.
Right.
But it's never true. This is their baiting tactic. They baited Saddam Hussein. It seems to me, from reading the Barr book, the Jared book, and now this Jeffrey Berman book, that they were baiting Trump to hire Berman so that they could get William Barr to do all kinds of things. Like when you listen to what Berman is saying about the cases they prosecuted, it's like, oh, we were totally fair. We
Bullshit.
Yeah, of course.
They didn't prosecute the Clinton Foundation, which
Well,
they
but he doesn't think that that's a crime. I mean, it's almost like, is this guy completely stupid, or is he?
Well, again, if your shtick is to get on a glide path to be a partner at one of these multinational serving globalist law firms, then, I mean, honestly, globalism, most lawyers don't understand basic math, right? So it sounds great. Let's lift the living standards of the entire world and not just focus on a nation. Let's create opportunities for the bigger companies to operate everywhere on Earth. Let's make sure that a small nation, America, has a big seat at the international table, bigger than we deserve. You can see why people might think think that it's interesting if you're going to be, what you're doing is you're creating a gigantic Rolodex, or whatever they call it now, of potential clients for your law firm. And life is easy. If you're representing IBM around the world and you're Covington and Burling, you'll have an annual income from IBM of $100 million a year.
Guaranteed retainer.
Probably $100 million a year, representing or more on various patent matters. I think at one point, GE at its peak was paying investment banks, accounting firms, and law firms, they were typically the largest client of most entities around the world. They're working with everybody. I don't see them. You know, and so that if you look at that and you say, okay, there's maybe 1,000, 5,000 interesting clients around the world. That's not that many to keep on track of.
I think there's a lot of lawyers who know how Washington, D.C. works, and they're willing to do things to try to get into the deep end of the swamp.
Right, and if your deal as a partner is basically you take advantage. I mean, it's really, if you were to think of this the way Bernie Sanders and other people talk about evil capitalism, the way in which law firms churn through graduates of the top law schools and the not so top law schools, it's a 7 to 10 year track to partner. You get a large salary, $250,000 salary or something like that, but they have to work all but 2 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
And you work your ass off. You're going up against other people who are also in the main smart, except for the partners, political partners, and only maybe in your class of 100 lawyers, maybe 2 become partners.
Well, and it's interesting how the Berman book goes into that with regard to the Southern District and becoming an assistant U.S. attorney and the U.S. attorney. Right. It gets into prestige and why they're prosecuting people, etc. But Charles, we're just about out of battery and runway.
Okay.
So thank you for another excellent show, and thanks everybody for watching. Make sure you tune in to subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Become a sponsor, enjoy the Counter Lawfare Report. We'll see everybody soon. Thanks for watching.